Okay, good evening, everybody. It is Monday, March the 18th at 5:30. We are going to call this meeting to order. The BEDC Board reserves the right to reconvene, recess, or realign the regular session or call executive session on order of business at any time prior to this adjournment. So we will start off. Do we have any public comment?
Chair, the only public comments we have are associated with the agenda line item on MOCA.
Very good. All right. And because we have 7 here, we're going to go ahead and move that up. And so number 4C, we're going to do as the very first one. So that is discussion and possible action on a request by MOCA Ventures. And I just want to remind everybody when you're up here speaking, you've got 3 minutes basically, okay? So if you want to go ahead and bring up the first, that would be fine.
They want you to call a name.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Let's start with Riley.
I've got our presentation.
Okay. Actually, I mean, it doesn't make a difference to me if you want John or Riley or whoever you want to come up first.
I'll just start off.
All right.
First off, good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. Just want to thank you for having us tonight. We've got our team, John Bosch, Jerry Keys, who's our attorney, Gabe Hodvey, and Paul Victorian. They are representatives with Southwest Engineers. And then Brandon Battles, who is our architect. Sean Sinner, who's a representative of MOCA Financial. If you guys have any questions towards the end of our presentation, you guys are more than welcome to ask those. So we can continue on, and when you get questions, we can answer those from these people.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Who do you want to start with? John or?
We can start with our presentation.
Y'all go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I want to start out with a little history of BEDC and MOCA Ventures. So MOCA Ventures purchased the site from the BEDC subject to incentives set forth in an economic development performance agreement between MOCA Ventures and the BEDC on September 17th of 2021 and subsequently amended pursuant to First Amendment Economic Development Performance dated February 7th of 2022. MOCA Ventures also entered into a long-term lease with MOCA Financial by which it would build structures on the site suited for MOCA Financial intended uses, a build-to-suit lease, wherein MOCA Ventures would design with MOCA Financial. The original deadline for MOCA Ventures to commence construction of the structures is within 1 year of the effective date of the performance agreement, which was amended and subsequently extended several times until August 7th of 2024. The Bastrop City Council passed a resolution on December 14th of 2021, which authorized funding of a roadway on BEDC's property to connect and allow access to the site via an extension off of South Jackson Street. From South Jackson Street to the site's entrance via Financial Way. The road construction is finalizing now. Although we believe that we have made substantial progress in connection with the site development plans and obtaining city authorizations of the construction of the sites, we have not made enough progress to obtain a building permit to commence construction on the structures as depicted in the original site plan. MOCA Ventures informally submitted a draft of a proposed revised site plan and proposed amendments to the performance agreement to the BDC on February 16th of 2024 to extend the deadline for construction and to be eligible for incentive payments from the BEDC. The BEDC Executive Director placed the draft proposal on the agenda for the BEDC board meeting on the 26th of February. At the February BDC board meeting, the board denied Mocha Ventures' proposal to amend the performance agreement as reflected in the draft proposal submitted for discussion. Mocha Ventures acknowledges that we could have made more rapid progress in its development activities, but we also admit that changes in the business plan of our tenant, Mocha Financial, in 2023 created uncertainty as to the specific needs of Mocha Financial. The tenant's anticipated customer mix changed as an increase in government contracts, which reduced the office space need of a call center for operations and added the need for a more secure space segregated from the other operations. Is that the time? Thank you. Appreciate it. Our engineer representatives and architect believe that it is nearly impossible for Mocha Ventures to obtain city approvals, including a building permit, and commence construction based on the last revised site plan submitted to the BEDC by the deadline of August 7th, 2024, set forth in the performance agreement. Consequently, the engineer representatives and architect have recommended to Mocha Ventures that the site plan and proposed construction schedule again be changed in order to give us a chance at commencing construction by the deadline. As a result, we present the following proposed alternative solutions to the board today, which we are pursuing in tandem. First, Mocha Ventures is willing to pay and able to pay $500,000 contribution to the construction of Financial Way, from which Mocha Ventures intends to have permanent access to the site. In addition to the original $900,000 purchase price, Mocha Ventures' $500,000 contribution for the road will result in Mocha Ventures paying $1.4 million, which is more than the present estimated fair market value for the site. Our concern, however, is that we will pay the contribution and, despite our future development work and our efforts to get the required building permit from the city, we do not get this required building permit to commence construction by August 7th. Therefore, Mocha Ventures is willing to terminate the BEDC obligations to pay any incentive agreements under the performance agreement, provided the BEDC will no longer have the right of reversion of the purchase site to the BEDC. In effect, a termination of the performance agreement upon Mocha Ventures' payment of its $500,000 contribution to the construction of Financial Way. In the meantime, Mocha Ventures intends to proceed as follows in order to make every good faith effort to meet the present deadline for commencement of construction. Our engineer consultants met with the Bastrop city engineer late last week to discuss the latest proposed changes to the Mocha Ventures development plan and to obtain his feedback on the newly revised plan. Based upon our engineer and architect's latest plans that was presented to the city engineer, the proposed structures will be divided into 3 phases. In phase 1, Mocha Ventures will build a new 4,000 square foot building near the entrance to the site on the proposed interior road from Financial Way, presently under construction. The construction will include an associated parking lot. The present phase 1 would become phase 2, and the present phase 2 would become phase 3. The city engineer has informally indicated that Mocha Ventures can submit a new revised site plan showing the proposed 4,000 square foot building and associated parking near the site entrance. The other structures included in this recently proposed revised site plan submitted to the BEDC would only be shown on the new revised site plan in a grade back presentation, with the understanding that only the plans for phase 1 structures would be needed to be submitted in detail to the city for their review and approval at this time. This would reduce the time for review, and issues would be addressed and approved by the city. We were informed that Mocha Ventures would also need to submit and obtain reapproval of the presently approved drainage plan. The project plans to retain the previous plan and approve 2 detention ponds required for the ultimate build-out condition. Mocha Ventures would submit the newly revised site plans, drainage plans, and Phase 1 structure plans for concurrent site plan and building plan review to expedite the obtaining of any required approvals. We wish to emphasize that even provided this summary, our architect representatives and engineers believe that it will still be challenging to obtain all the required approvals by the present August 7th deadline for the commencement of construction in the performance agreement. So at this time, I would like to openly ask for questions. You can ask myself or any part of our team specific questions that be open. So thank you.
You, on the, in the packet on page 65, that's where you say substantial project progress. So the way I'm reading, the way you have it written is, you guys think you've made substantial progress on the project, but it's not enough to get a building permit. And I'd like to know if staff thinks that you've received substantial amount of work product towards the project.
I've got the building official here who can answer any further questions, but to date, we have received and approved a drainage plan.
Good afternoon. James County Development Service. I believe Sylvia passed out, or staff passed out, you have Mocha's timeline. Back in 6/29 of 23, a preliminary drainage was reviewed, accepted, and approved 3 months later on 9/21. 23/239 was the final drainage plan that was submitted on 10/16/12/14 and approved. But as previously stated, that was on the master design, so the question is, how would they phase it? Would they put all the drainage in per the original design and phase the construction, or try to save money and phase the drainage based on the footprint being proposed as impervious surface? So it depends on how much you're changing from the original drainage plans, and everything would domino after that.
So to make sure I'm clear on what you're stating, it's that it's not that you're mandating they do a different drainage plan, it's that you don't know what they're planning on
Right.
doing. Are they going to do all of the detention for the entire site at this time?
So you
And
have
so
a-
you'd have to see what their plan is to be able to, because if it was, we're not changing anything, that's what we're going to build now, then you're not retracting your approval. Is that correct?
Their master plan is never to change from the original plans. We can stick with the original plan, they can put all the drainage in, and they could phase the square footage of the construction parking lots. But if they're going to reduce drainage based on reduced footprint, or they're going to redraw the drainage plan.
And you don't have any way of knowing that?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that we weren't, that we, the city, because, and you've
Correct.
made a couple comments about submitting to BEDC. Just for clarity, BEDC does
No.
not review plans. That all goes through the city, goes through their planning and engineering. And although the city has approved a master drainage plan,
Correct.
you're not walking back from that approval.
No.
You just don't know what their plans are now, because they've gone from 40,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet, and now we're at 4,000 square feet.
Correct, and any amendments to the site process or any amendments to what they submit would have to match their EDC performance agreement anyway to be in compliance. 4,000 is probably a magic number because there are less requirements for something that's under 49,999 in terms of architectural and engineering. So 4,000 is probably a number that could get done easier, assuming other things have already been approved, i.e. an amended contract here.
So what is your plan? What is the 4,000 square feet going to be used for? What's going in there?
The 4,000 square foot would, I'm sorry, I'll back up here. Say, I'm John Bosch. The 4,000 square foot plan is to get Mocha Financial a place to go in. It would be office space for Mocha Financial. It's, you know, it's something that we can do to get to the time frame.
I may be asking this wrong, and if I am, I apologize here, but the way it was explained to us is that this whole deal was based upon getting a government contract, correct?
Right, that's the business plan of Mocha Financial at this
Okay.
point.
And without going into details or anything like that, where are you on getting that government contract?
I can't comment on that because I'm not part of Mocha Financial, but if we,
Can your attorney give us that information? And I don't need any major details, I'm just asking for general information.
Actually, Sean said with the president of Mocha Financial.
Yeah, you need to come to the dais, sir. Okay, thank you.
Hey, guys, how you doing? Sean Center, President, Mocha Financial. We pivoted 6 months ago. Our channel is the government and the military. We signed an exclusive deal with the DOD. We're a defense contractor as of about 12 months now. So we have a contract, the first contract. We also have the second contract with the Military Association of Banks. So that's our second contract. We're implementing those as we speak. They're classified. I can't tell you what it is, but it's a good deal for all of us. I'm just going to tell you that. We have multiple more on the back burner that are coming in. You turn on that faucet, it just continues. We have a pretty sharp group that's covering the government that we've hired to come in and help us.
And I appreciate that explanation, but to me, it kind of begs the question, if you've had the contract for 12 months now, why haven't you come and pushed this thing through and got started based on the very first deal you guys came to us
Question for me?
almost 3 years ago and talked to us, right? Why? Why the delay?
I can answer that.
Please.
So, anybody in this room familiar with payments? I retired from Visa a couple years ago. To launch a government program to replace an existing program, to put that in place, it's an 18-month project. Has anybody did business outside of local community government? When you deal with the government, the U.S. government, it takes a tremendous amount of time, as we all know. And it's a process. You go through certification. We had to go through FinCEN. Does everybody know what FinCEN is? Financial crime. So we got a stamp approval from FinCEN through the U.S. Treasury, through the Bureau of Fiscal Services. So there's a lot of stepping stones. That answer your question?
I appreciate that, and you've been in the business. You know what needs to take place in
Yes,
order
sir.
to get this done. I come from a background of working directly with DOD and other government agencies
So you know what I'm
in my
talking
job.
about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So my question still stands. You've been doing this for quite a long time. You've had the contract for 12 months. What's the holdup?
I'm sorry, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
They haven't had, the contract for the government work wasn't signed 12 months ago. It was signed more recently than that. But the process of contract negotiations has been ongoing for quite some time. The original business plan for Mocha Financial was to provide payment processing services for a new sophisticated debit card to banks with a primary focus on community banks and regional banks and fintechs. There was a decision that the government portion needed to take priority over that as a result of the banking crisis that occurred, as you may recall, about a year ago when Silicon Valley Bank went under. At that time, when it went under, there was a banking crisis, and basically most of the regional and smaller banks basically put everything on hold, including any new card processing, until they felt that the crisis was over with. As you well know, there's a bunch of banks that are still in jeopardy because of the increase in interest rates and the real estate. And as a result, the focus shifted, and Mocha Financial, as I understand it, had to basically change significantly the emphasis of their business model, which in effect changes the type of space it needs. The government requires their own separate building, not part of another building. And we, as I understand it, we still don't have all the details that that building needs to meet. The 4,000 square foot building is to basically provide space for the existing MoCA employees.
That building would not be up to DOD standards to have.
No,
the
DOD building is in phase 2 now.
And I don't know who can answer this. How many square feet of office space do you occupy in the city of Bastrop right now with the current employees that you have?
So we're located on 704 Main Street, it's about 2,000 square feet.
2,000?
2,000 square feet.
So this first 4,000 square foot really?
It'll double our size.
So you'll vacate that?
We'll vacate the current location to move out once this is ready. Yes, ma'am.
And then the only other thing that I'd like to just to clarify, make sure that we're all on the same page. Riley, you made a statement that $900,000 for the property and $500,000 for the road would mean you'd be $1.4 million in for the property. I want to clarify, $500,000 is less than half of what that road cost and is your fair share of the roadway. So I just want to make sure we're not mixing apples and oranges. The $500,000 is for a roadway that BEDC contracted for, paid an engineer, paid for a paving, and according to our interim executive director this morning, it was paved last Thursday.
Correct.
So we've done our side. And
Correct.
that money and that $500,000 is related to the road. And I understand if you're overall for the project, but it's not, in my mind, accurate to say, now we've paid $1.4 million for the property, because that's not what has happened. The $500,000, which you haven't paid yet, is for a road, and it's less than half.
Correct. That
Just
500,000.
so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that 500,000 was based on the performance agreement up to 500,000.
Absolutely. You're making my point. The road cost us more, and we didn't come back to you and say, hey, the road cost us more, so we want you to pay half of it. The agreement said half not to exceed $500,000. And it cost us more than $1 million, but we're holding to the letter of the law, the agreement that we signed first.
Yes.
With the $500,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Do you guys have anything else you would like to add? Okay. Thank you very much. At this point in time, it is 5:54 p.m. on Monday the 18th, and we are going to go into executive session, and we will be back. No? Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're going to have discussion of attorney-client privileged information. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, the time now is 6:32 p.m. on Monday, the 18th, and there will be no action to come out of the executive committee. Therefore, we will move on now to Director's Report 3.A.
Thank you, Chair. The Director's Report is intended to give you guys a 50,000-foot view of what is going on. I am happy to receive direction on any one of these items, although this isn't an action item per se. The first item is, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Vanna. And apologies for the small text. Project Fiesta is working through a revised agreement on their building plans. Their plans are being amended from 2 separate buildings to 1 large building, and will now also include classroom space for workforce training and development.
Do we have a feel for how big that, is it a single classroom? Is it real big that they
No,
can be
no feel
divided?
for
Okay.
how big. They do workforce training for their existing staff that is in Austin. They do English as a second language and some other training, so we'll be able to utilize that as well. Technical adhesives, this continues through the construction phase. Financial Way, so it says first half of April. That project has been paved. We accept acceptance, full project acceptance, probably the first week of April, the latter part of May. Mocha Ventures, we just talked about. Accutronic will be a topic of discussion among the board and staff over the next couple of meetings. If you recall, because the park was not going to be finished out in its completion, Accutronic would like or requires a second entrance. And to Board Schrader's position, can we just leave that as a construction entrance, because building a road small segments at a time is very expensive. That's not real keen for Accutronic. And so we're trying to work our way through the sequence of development to, by the time we get to that portion of road.
So let me ask you just a little bit, pushing back on that just a little bit. When they say that that's not, and I'm not sure they use the word acceptable because I wasn't in the meeting, but why do they want something more than a construction entrance?
Well, the building code requires 2 entrances for egress for a apartment. And so that ends up starting at Financial Way, and it works its way. They can come in this entrance, and they can come in the top entrance. This bottom entrance, the way the building situation was going to start, the buildings are going to start at the Financial Way and phase their way down. There are parking lots and other things. A construction entrance is okay during construction entrance, but they would like a completed street by the time they need it, so.
So it may, what I'm hearing you say is, depending on their phasing, it may become a moot point, and we're building the rest of the road anyways, what we're trying
It
to do.
may,
and
but
not build, because that's the
Yes.
hands-down most expensive way to build a road.
Correct. They would like some flexibility in their site plan. As things in their business progress, they want to be able to build bottom building or top building. They want to be able to build as necessary. So they're pushing back a little bit on the road. We'll continue to visit and see what we can negotiate through.
Okay, I guess we're going to need to have more discussion. When are you getting together with them? Because that's, obviously, we're going to need to understand the cost associated with that, where it's going to go, and what may be an alternative to putting in concrete, right? Okay.
Will do. It could be, there is a potential for so side note, in the streets division, we are doing a proof of concept of a polymer-based that is being used in third world countries right now, where it is literally going over limestone base and it looks like asphalt. City of Austin has used it on Slaughter Lane. We went and inspected. It's been in for 5 years. It has done wonderful. Their proof of concept was driving lane versus turning lane. Obviously, the turning lane gets more use and movement, the drive lanes and some of the bicycle lanes. So we'll continue to investigate, and it is a relatively inexpensive product.
And I don't remember, Accutronic, do they have expecting heavy trucks, or it's more standard traffic?
It's more standard traffic. We're worried through construction, right? How
Yeah, but we could be back to a construction entrance during construction.
Sure.
And then when you get to driving, if they want it to look nicer because somebody's pulling into their parking lot, that's where you're suggesting the polymer to go down? Okay.
And we'll get more information. I know they met with staff a few days ago. I'm going to circle back with staff and figure out what, because I think there's still some negotiation. There is an expectation of utilities, which are available to the site. The developer has a little bit of a thought of, well, I thought you were bringing utilities all the way to my site. So we're going to work through some of the normal development.
Back to your point of, it's a 50,000-foot view, there's lots of conversations still. Okay.
Yes. I'm meeting with Doucette tomorrow. There is $166,000 of an unbilled invoice is what he presented, and we're going to go through that with a fine-tooth comb, and I expect we'll land somewhere less than $166,000.
So on that one item, if you don't mind me asking, if you were to give it a percentage of completion versus a percentage of payment, where do they balance
Oh,
out?
Lord.
Just
Well,
a-
this wasn't the standard city contract, first of all. So 30% completion was not 30% completion. 50% completion was not 50% completion. So I would venture to say this project in its entirety is probably 30% complete, but they've received about 45 to 50% of payment.
Well, then that's your strong negotiating point right there. Okay, thank you.
So we've talked about the environmental study for the Houston Toad. This is year 3. It's required. Not sure what we'll find. And then we continue with the office clearing and then the record destruction.
On the toad study, is that only on the piece of property that we've been talking about north of Financial Way, or is it for all of the toad habitat area in the industrial park?
So my understanding is that it's a continuation of what Doucette had started for us on our behalf on the southern portion. So they have to put out the monitoring equipment.
Yeah, I
listen for
understand
those
all that.
signals.
I'm
Okay.
wanting to know what area.
It's the southern portion.
So there's been nothing done on the north of Financial Way?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
That
I don't know.
might be something for us to,
Please, we need to ask that. For projects, we had a discussion this morning about the sports complex. Ideation and renderings were assigned to Luck Designs. We had an initial proposal that includes some changes to get prospective renderings. However, we need to have a joint city council meeting with BEDC to identify this, number one, as a project, and number two, what is the expectation moving forward for all parties. So that is tentatively set to March 26th, which is a council meeting date. We would have it earlier in, before council starts as a workshop with EDC. Is there anybody who cannot make that date?
I bet you're around. I just suggested that Councilmember Lee probably already had that on her calendar.
I don't have a problem, just the time.
4:30?
Time 4:30 works.
Okay.
On that one also, I just wanted to, we don't have land for this. This is all just concept of,
This is all industrial park land that is unaccounted for or not assigned.
so we're considering land in the industrial park.
Yes,
for
there's
this.
about 80 plus or minus acres.
Okay, great.
That's one thing that we're going to be talking about during this joint meeting, to kind of give an idea, just a general overview of it, if you will, and get together on the project, right? Okay.
And then, based on the executive committee meeting this morning, it's my understanding, because we may get into some conversations about land deals and what we would be looking at, that we might find part of that workshop in executive session. And so other possibilities to be discussed will be discussed in private to protect the taxpayers' interest in the property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to Section 4, Regular Business and Presentations. 4.A, Approval of the meeting minutes from the regular BEDC Board meeting of February the 26th, 2024. for a motion here.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, 4.b, receive financial reports for the periods ending February 2024.
So Board, there are some correct documents in front of you. The PowerPoint should also already be corrected. We had some typos, we had some date corrections, and there was also an amount that was incorrect. I'm not sure our finance director knew she was presenting tonight. Or?
Hi, I'm Edie McElwain, the CFO.
Teams or email?
In front of you, you have the summary of the revenues and expenditures. You can see that we are in a very strong position. We have, our expenditures are down a lot, our revenues are up, so we will look at our sales tax revenues.
So on the, back on it, spending the 597,000, which is almost 6 times what we had been spending in a month. We were told this morning that that was a Doucette payment. Is it correct to assume that if that payment was made, that's not under discussion? So that's a part of the paying 50% for 30% of the work or whatever, but that's.
Correct. Correct.
So it would be an additional payment that you're discussing?
Correct. This is actually to the construction company, 304.
Oh, so it's not Doucette?
No, it's payment to the construction company.
Okay. It's the road?
Yes, it's the road.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Our sales tax numbers are strong. We are 3.8% over projection for through February of this fiscal year.
And that's the corrected number, 64,805 is the corrected. The old slide, or the packet showed 55,000, and that was an error.
It was a formula error in the Excel document.
And the 1.7 for the sales tax for fiscal year '24, because the budget we were looking at this morning that's the portion of the 3.7 is that going to change is where I'm going with that, because in April, isn't it going to kick in that number will go down?
It will
So
decrease.
does this forecast of 1.7 include the adjustment that's going to occur in April?
I doubt that it does at
I-
this point,
yeah.
but can we
Yeah.
make that change?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I just.
Yep,
trying to be
because these
clear
are based on the adopted budget, and now there's an
Right.
amended,
But
an amended
since it's
budget.
forecasting and not budget, but forecasting, that.
Yes.
That officially changes. And am I remembering that correctly, that number changes in April?
Yes. The, what Board Member Schrader is referring to is the total amount forecasted to be received because the EDC sales tax portion was reduced to 1/8 from 1/2.
On the next slide, you can see that expenses are lower than forecasted for fiscal year period ending February. And Angela can probably speak more on that if you have any questions.
It's less staff for the most part, and we're not doing any traveling or marketing or, we're not spending a lot of money, so there you go.
What makes up the contractual services?
Let me go to the detail sheet. That, if I recall correctly in our budget, that includes things that are owed to the city, that includes legal services, that includes anything we have contracts due for payment.
It's not one of the accounts that we got, though, right? I'm not seeing a contractual services.
Well, that's gonna be,
It will be,
that's gonna be 4D, right? Or are we gonna talk, are we gonna go through this detail?
Well, this detail goes with this.
Okay, all right, that's what I'm doing.
It's in our budget. It's in our budget document. Let me go back.
contractual services includes audit fees, legal, engineering, property insurance. And so it's probably, the detail that you see, it's probably going to be multiple accounts added together.
But Angela, you don't know what the 78,000 so far, what do you think it's been on?
That, part of that would be the transfer fees for the Main Street, the administrative services agreement, legal fees, probably professional services.
Let's see.
She took my list, so.
Okay.
Oh, and there's a shared services agreement too, and that's where we piggyback on the city if, for any software that they purchase.
I have Main Street, admin support, shared services, the Doucette contract, and fiber lights.
Doucette?
It's on, I'm reading through under contracts.
Yeah, but the forecast is 220,000, so it doesn't seem like that can be Doucette.
No, I have Doucette under contractual obligations in my
Gotcha.
income sheet.
Okay. But not on this sheet?
No,
that
no,
we're
no,
looking at. Okay.
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 This is Jackson Street Extension and the business part. We have not spent any money on Jackson Street Extension this fiscal year.
My guess is it's upside down, because we have expended funds on the Jackson Street extension, but not on the MLK
Oh, okay.
infrastructure.
Could I ask that when we get this in the future, that we actually have some detail behind it? If we have 1.4 for Jackson Street, I want to know what's been spent, and what was it spent on, so that we know what's left. And on the industrial park, the same question. If we've only spent 684, what were we projected to spend at this point in time? Just maybe a little more information, if you don't mind, to get us where we have a little better comfort feeling on this, as far as where it is. Just because we have so many projects going on. And
So that's interesting. Edie and I were talking right before the meeting how I don't think either of us are fond of this older way of us doing things. I think maybe we're going to get together and have a meeting of the minds and come up with something better than this. To me, this doesn't tell me much.
well, it's a
I
nice
need to
summary,
see
but it
numbers.
doesn't say anything.
Thank
No
you.
disrespect, I'm just saying that
No,
we need
this,
some more
this
detail.
has been a holdover for many, many years. So instead of Edie trying to learn why we do it this way, maybe we just need to get together and come up with something better, since you guys are obviously needing more information.
Thank you.
And here you
And
can,
then this is the one that's, the 6 million is based on the adopted budget and not a later agenda item that we're going to talk about.
correct.
Gotcha.
So this is what it looks like now, but it will be totally different at the next meeting. But we are in a good position.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no additional questions on that, then we will move on to section 4.d, presentation of possible action on amending the fiscal year 24 budget. I guess I would like to make a little bit of an opening statement here. So I just want to make sure that we understand that we just have kind of, we've been going through this. We talked a little bit about this morning in the executive session, but I don't think there's really going to be any action on this. I may be wrong, but I don't really think there's going to be any action on this because we've got a lot of things that we need to get further information on and work on before we actually get down to the real budget. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, in the meeting today, we did talk about the fact that our, like, even looking at this first page, the revenues are going to be down substantially, the budget's going to be down, and so, for instance, on Main Street, we could take an action that there's no further transfer on Main Street because it's paid monthly and they've gotten 6 months' worth, and the budget's going to be lower. Is that correct? And wasn't that what you were recommending this morning?
That's correct. We don't have a Main Street manager, have not had a Main Street manager since the end of December, so January, February, March, April, in anticipation of a potential May start hire. That would have already been 50% of, or a little less than 50% of the necessary budget that's already been transferred.
So there may be a couple little things like that.
Thank you. All right, well, I will.
Well, what I was hoping is that, first of all, the board had an understanding of everything that's on deck to be paid and what is owed and what projects we're doing. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is you asked for some information on operations and staffing. And then you asked for some information on the fund balance. What did we have, what did we commit, and what would we end up with? And I think more than anything, that's probably the detail sheet that goes along with this on the income statement is that some of the super detail that you guys asked about in terms of operating expenses. And I think that's where Board Schrader's talking about. How do I take the red pen to that and delete? Staff has taken a first pass. We programmed a lot less dollars in some of this. And so if nothing else, if we leave here going, okay, well, we agree that those are rational and reasonable amounts, then we're going to come back and build a budget that will then inform the 25 budget on what we're going to reduce and what those line items are supposed to be.
And on this income statement, you clarified for us that it's not quarter one, it's quarter 1 and 2, it's quarter 3 and 4. The numbers are different than what's shown here, but the total together of the 3,064,000 is the same.
Correct.
So if there's people going, wait a minute, I thought we just said it's going to hit April. There's just a couple little things that need to be cleaned up.
Correct. So sales tax revenue, to her point, so when the election was approved, that dollar doesn't take into account, it doesn't start until April 1. So there will be 2 quarters where a full half cent is still received. If you think on average, we were collecting 1.1 per 1/8 of a cent, so that's where the $4.4 million. It's been trending at about $4.7 million. So in quarters 1 and 2, the expectation is a little over $2 million. In quarters 3 and 4, the expectation is about $800,000. And so it still adds up to $3,064,000, even with the great reduction to 1/8 of a cent. Next year, if we continue the trend, and you say 4.7 divided by 4, that's 1.175 per quarter, So, yes, per year. So if you divide that by quarter, sorry.
So on this page, with the current somewhat scrubbed but still open for discussion, total expenses is 1.6 million, so we would be, and I know it gets off a little bit because year on year, you wouldn't have another $700,000 outlay to
Correct.
set.
Correct. And so if you look at total revenues of 3.3, we will keep the cell tower lease, we keep interest income and grant receipts until we finish out the small business loan several years out. We reduced marketing travel to $1,800. Business development, we went through and decreased all of this. The two large amounts that we left were special education and workforce development from the groups who came to present, and then $75,000 for special projects for business retention and expansion. Those two are up for discussion because I'm not real sure where the board wants to head and if there is a particular focus the board would like to do. The other thing that goes away in 25 is the office lease and those utilities. There will be some payment to the city, but how much and to be determined. We'll work with Charlie to develop that.
And that 275 includes what we're going to be talking about here on 4.E?
Correct.
Thank you.
But it can't be, office lease can't be zero because we still owe the office lease through
Correct. That's why I said
October.
we would work with Charlie on what's an appropriate amount.
No, I'm saying we still owe $3,600 a month, and there's nothing budgeted for the office contract that we have.
Oh, I gotcha. That's an error. So we still have, through December, I thought the lease ended October. Okay.
Angela, is it through the end of the year or through the end of the fiscal year?
It is through the end of the year. I pulled it up and it had been struck through and handwritten December 31st. And I think that's because it took us several months to come to an agreement
All
on
the
it.
more reason that it's not zero.
Exactly.
All right, so a little more work of scrubbing this is going to be necessary then.
And then to the points of the Main Street manager, if that's reduced by half to $25,000 in this fiscal year and then zeroed out into the next fiscal year is, I guess, the recommendation that I'm hearing.
That would be my recommendation, is that we've already paid, roughly 6 months of the $50,000 that we set aside for Main Street, and there's turmoil in that particular area right now. They don't have a lot of things going on. I think we should stop what we're doing. We should not support that anymore. So I would like to see that taken out myself, and then not have anything for next year either. I mean, if it comes up, we can discuss it.
So for this year, reduced to 25 because you've already expended $25,000, and in the FY25 budget, zero it out.
That is correct.
And unless, if you have on your city manager hat, you think there's something appropriate as you guys are preparing the budget, right? I think we would entertain if you're like, hey, I'm just.
No, sure.
You're early in the year
She's
and-
like, go, dig.
Well,
And
no, you're
actually.
early in the year and there may be something and you're like, you know what? This really would match with BEDC objective.
Well, so it's funny that you should say that because I've been talking about efficiencies and how we're all tripping over each other, and I've been talking about that since day one. EDC's mission is business development and business retention, and it falls along with that. That's also the mission of Main Street, although we trip over each other. And so as we have a new position that we're developing and we're revamping the Main Street program into more special events, et cetera, there is more than likely a chance for those two positions to mesh or morph into something that is more effective and more efficient and doesn't require a $342,000 budget over here and then $50,000 from over here and then a little bit from over here and a little bit for over here, and I still have businesses screaming that nobody's representing me. So
That is really my point, is that I don't think you're super far along in your FY '25 budget, and so there,
We
I don't want to
started
just,
planning.
I don't, from my perspective, and obviously all the board can speak, but I would hate to say, we're not going to give one dime to Main Street. If there's a good project that makes sense, I would think we should entertain
Well,
it.
I would say, my personal opinion, the Main Street budget is $342,000. $50,000, if the board would like to put it aside as a future, perhaps a special fund, Main Street can come to the board and request it.
Right.
That would be my preference, so that you know where those dollars are spent. There's too many questions today as to where did it go, what was it spent? Does it meet the legal definition? Did it meet the technicality? Did we spend it on bags or did we spend it on a job? And Charlie's laughing at me because he's like, hello, so, you know.
Well, but, and also, the 50,000 was when the budget, when the revenue was 4 million.
Yes.
So
No,
whatever that
too,
number is,
exactly.
it needs to be in perspective of out of a total
Exactly.
$1.2 million.
And to the point of EDC's mission, if the Main Street board or the Main Street manager needs to come and ask for assistance, they can come and ask, and the board can make that decision at that time. Charlie will owe me dinner. And so, yes, Angela's talking about administrative support and shared services. And what we have to work on internally as a city is, what is that overhead cost? Everybody has an overhead cost. I don't have that figure, so I don't know what that charge extrapolated would be charged to EDC.
So we've got to pay our fair share, but not more than our fair share.
Correct. And we did remove Opportunity Austin. We left some things in there for sponsorships. EDC was super big on sponsoring, whether that was Lemonade Day for small business development or those kinds of things. Career Day. We reduced that greatly, though. Special retail recruiting. Yeah, that's the retail coach
So
contract.
it's really kind of
probably.
like Main Street, just an opportunity of, is this really a good use of dollars, and do we have accountability back to it, and what are we getting, and that kind of thing?
Especially, and I think the job description that we're going to look at in the next, what that person would be doing and where these things would plug into that.
Agreed.
All right, I know that Director Schrader's already asked this question, but I'll ask it again. On the Doucette contract, that $700,000, since we've already paid 500 and X amount of dollars, that would come out of this thing, right?
No, 500 was to the contractor who built the street.
That's right.
Yes.
That-
Yes.
Okay, all right.
You would have already seen in your, yes, to your answer, yes, that number would be reduced because you've already been paying the Doucette contract as it. I have $690,000 of expenses we've already paid.
But didn't you say that the number could be 866? What
Yes.
they're asking for is
Yes.
as high as
Yes.
866. So this may still have to, it
A
still
little
needs to
bit,
shake out.
yes. Oh, sorry. So for this one, I tossed and turned and I tossed and turned and I tossed and turned because I'd like to see everything that I owe. This is a balance sheet per year. We have a bonds payable that's $275,000, but that total owed, if the EDC were to go away tomorrow, what is owed outstanding?
Sylvia,
That-
I'm sorry, people are frantically looking, this wasn't in the packet.
Oh, sorry.
So
We don't have to frantically look, is my point.
Okay.
right. There were 4 pages, 4 tabs in one workbook, and I was overzealous and included all of them. And I didn't realize that she had not in the packet, so.
Put it in the balance sheet. But at our next meeting, I want to talk about everything that is owed that would be able to clear the deck if EDC, because I think there's this feeling of trepidation of we may not have enough money, we don't have enough money. We do have enough money. It's being smart in how we spend our money and making sure we're not drawing down every single year beyond that.
What fixed assets did the EDC have for 760,000? That's all the land?
It's going to be land, it's going to be, I don't think you have any machinery or equipment. Edie, can you respond to that? She doesn't have it in front of her, but we'll provide that.
Yeah, I thought it might be I thought it was the industrial part.
Since it says net the accumulated depreciation, it has to be the balance of the property in the industrial park, doesn't it? Of what it was on the books
I'm sure
for?
that's at least a component. I don't know what else. I don't know what else is in there without having a detail sheet.
Yeah.
Just curious, it has receivable lease of 197. What lease are we counting as a receivable?
Accounts receivable, a lease. Receivable lease, 197,000.
We get money from the cell tower, but what else do we have that we're getting $197,000 for?
I don't have any detail in front of me. The cell tower lease is only 18,000. We receive interest income of 250.
You've got the spreadsheet that I took it from. Does it say there's no notes? Balance sheet says, oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, go to the top. Balance sheet, okay. 197. She doesn't say.
No, there's no note there.
It's not the lease.
So why don't we do this to move along here? We have a couple of questions that need to be answered, so if you guys will come back to us and give us the answers of those, I think we'd all like to at least have a better understanding of it.
Sure, and from the budget perspective, is there anything in the budget sheet that needed to be reduced further?
Well,
I feel like until we know or have a projection of what April's gonna look like, it's kind of hard for me to grasp what's being presented to us, because I understand this is all proposed budget based on where we were before the election, but I feel like we may end up breaking down a lot of this stuff once I need to know what is that number going to be, your best guess estimate, then taking a look at the expenses, your balance sheet that we have. I just feel like we won't know what we want to break down or reduce until we get a better handle on what that money amount's going to be in April.
Well, so the estimate is 1.175. That's from this point forward, 1.175 should be the dollars receivable from EDC based on sales tax. Add to that the cell tower lease of 18,000, add to that interest income of 250,000, so 1.3, 1.4 million. So you want to see a new revenue projection and new expenses to understand where you are. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would like to follow that up to say, to kind of add what you're saying, Cheryl, that we'd like to go ahead and get, and maybe have a more discussion, a better discussion with some more strategy involved in it of what we want to do, what we want to fund, what we may look at maybe not funding in the future. Because this, again, this is fiscal 24 budget. This is not the future 25
This is
budget.
existing.
So this is existing budget, right? Okay. So more work, I think, needs to be done on that. Thank you. That's a good point. We did talk about potentially reducing the amount or not paying anything further to Main Street. So I guess we would need a motion to halt any future payments out of the remainder amount that we have until we decide what we want to do. Would that be correct?
That's a Charlie question.
Since we have talked about perhaps not spending any more of the $50,000 to Main Street, and we've already spent roughly half of it, do we need a motion that says we're going to cease and desist as far as paying any more monthly allotments to the Main Street until we figure out what we want to do with that money? And there's stop paying the remainder of the $25,000. Yes, we do.
Then, yeah, we would need to amend that agreement.
Okay.
Because we can't tell them to stop doing something that we've agreed to allow them to do contract. I mean, we could, I suppose. There was no obligation to comply.
Okay, so then we need to direct the executive director then to go ahead and renegotiate the contract based on what we've talked about? Would that be correct? To have,
Can you just amend the?
to amend the agreement?
So from an order of operations here, am I taking it to the city first and then EDC? What is the?
So yeah, that's a great point. It seems to me that you would direct our own executive director to approach city council with a possible amendment to the agreement.
But that's not a motion, we're just directing her to do that, correct? Okay.
Unless you feel that consensus isn't sufficient by the board chair.
Does anybody have,
Unless Sylvia would prefer a formal motion, either of those.
Nope, I'm okay. I'm putting it on the March 26th meeting as we speak.
all right. Okay, so then we are so directing you to renegotiate the contract, unless I hear different from anybody?
Is the language renegotiate the BEDC contract to
Excuse me.
fund Main Street?
Amend the contract so that we are basically have paid all that we're going to pay for the remainder of the year. Yeah, just make it even 25, call it a day.
Yep. Should we bring back in one fell
Next
swoop
year's
all of the agreements, both Main Street, administrative support, shared services?
I don't know if we're at a point right now, we're going to need to amend that based on what we're going to do, i.e. move the building, have people here. We don't know what that information is just yet, so I'm not sure we're ready to.
But the admin support was based on 7 people for the entire budget. So
Okay.
I would think the answer to that is if you take off your interim executive director hat and put on your city manager hat, is there any of the rest of it that needs to be, that's
Well-
not an adverse impact and
Well,
keeping
to
it
the
fair and
point of I don't know what our overhead charge is. I need to find out what that is.
Yeah.
Because those legal fees, they add up. Okay, I've put it as a placeholder on 3/26.
Any further discussion on 4.d? Very good. We will move on then to 4E, discussion and possible action on a job description for a professional level position titled Business Attraction, Retention, and Expansion Manager within the EDC.
So thank you, Chair. This position is to supplement Angela, the Director of Operations position, in that we making the assumption that the park is built out at some point, whether that's through a sports complex or with business and industry. Part of the business retention and attraction is to make those collaborative agreements with property owners, not represent them from a real estate perspective, but at least understand what property is out there, at least understand who would be amenable to industry or expansion. This person would essentially be doing that, recruit, retain, staying up to breast with all the economic development tools, developing a toolkit that helps our small businesses because that's a big component of what we do, understanding the demographics of who we are serving so that way they can go out and do that appropriate recruitment with site selectors, meeting with stakeholders throughout. So it is a well-rounded position. I took this job description from the city of Port Arthur. It's called an economic development specialist. The salary in that city is $74,000, and that is a city of about 55,000 people. They have an EDC budget of $4.7 million. So, any questions? Well, and I'd rather it be more verbose. That way I don't get an employee who says, that's not in my job description.
Is this going to be a posting on the city's website, on the BDE's
Both.
website? Are we going to go out?
Both. We'll post it on LinkedIn, which is a standard. We'll post it on EDC. We'll post it on the city because part of the shared services is that the city does the HR component for you.
I would also suggest adding TEDC, Texas Economic Development Council, because BRE is a very specific.
And referencing the executive committee meeting this morning, one of the things we talked about was clarifying who they report to.
And so my recommendation this morning is reporting to the Director of Operations because she has the lay of the land, but I'm open to any other suggestions.
I don't have a question. I think that this is something I've kind of been asking for. But now I'm concerned again about the reduction in our fiscal year budget come April. So where are we in terms of that? Do we think that adding another position, salaried position, will fit into what we're going to be reduced to?
That, Sylvia, if you don't mind, and then you. So keep in mind that we've got budget that we're going to be reducing because the original budget, we had
right.
7
That's
people in
true.
it. We're bringing that down substantially. We may be looking at the whole Main Street thing, right?
That's true.
So we talked about it this morning, but go ahead, take it, Sylvia.
So sure. So this year's budget shows $1.6 million, and it still shows 50 and 75 in those line items. But that 1.6 also includes 700 in there as a placeholder to do set. So if you take even the 700 to do set, you're in a $900,000 range of a budget. So with revenues at about 1.2, 1.175, something like that, you're still in the positive. And with some operational budget in there. We do have a few things slated to hit the road in terms of going vertical. There's several hotels, and then we have some retail and restaurants that are fixing to go vertical very quickly. So while the sales tax is reduced, it's not going to stay reduced for an extended period of time.
Well, and the fiscal year '24 budget has $275,000 in the personnel
Correct.
line item, which would handle the 2 employees. And I believe this morning you mentioned even potentially a 2.5.
A part-time person, yes, to help with the transition over.
And I just wanted to make sure that I'm up to date. Are you suggesting that that the pay would be up to 75,000 depending on their experience and work history?
Correct.
Okay.
For clarification purpose, I believe that's what Port Arthur was paying.
Yes.
That didn't we discuss earlier that it could be
75 to 90
75
is
to
what I
90.
plugged into the budget that is in that 276. But every salary dollar has a 30% overhead with retirement and so on and so forth. That's why that number is 276, even though it's only 2.5 people.
And what is the total staffing in Port Arthur?
I'm sorry?
The total staffing in Port Arthur?
That's a good question.
I'm their general counsel.
And I didn't get
There
this
you
from
are.
you.
I think it's like I think they have three full-time staff. An executive director and 2 others, but I could be wrong.
And there had also been a line item of project management for 25,000, and so we talked about Main Street
4.
and the project management would nearly fund this person and be substantially more help to the efforts.
Now, I am not suggesting, and I don't know where it is in the budget, that the project management piece be done away with as part of a shared services, because as you understood with MOCA, we get to an agreement in EDC and then you hand it off. There's still some project management that's handled by Angela and so forth, but the detail operation, the devil's in the details as it goes through its way to building permit, so. But to the point of if the Main Street budget, or if the Main Street manager is $50,000, and then this one is somewhere between 74 and 90, the net is much less than the total, if that makes sense. Yeah, between that and the rent might pay for it.
Okay, very good.
Do we need a motion to approve? Is that what we do next?
Yeah,
And what are we approving? Are we approving just the job description itself, or are we approving you to go forth and post the job?
You would be approving the job description and the posting. If you're not ready for me to post, then just approve the job description and tell me don't post it yet, because I'm not comfortable.
I just wanted to be, because the language just says a job description, so that it doesn't say actual proceeding with the post. So I just want to be clear on what we'd be approving.
well, I think we're approving the position, and maybe if we need to maybe massage or manipulate the words maybe a little bit better to clarify a few things, I think that kind of goes along with to getting it ready to post it. So I believe it's kind of both of them, if you will, would be my take on it.
Well, and I say that because your prior director had a job description that was approved, and then they went and hired, and the board acted surprised as to the hire and the salary. So I would like clear direction as to what you expect me to do.
Well, first of all, I think the approval of the job itself, the job posting, I'd like to see it in that 74 to 90 range myself, knowing how things are going these days and inflation and everything else. I think it'd be difficult to find somebody with this much background for the 74, but that's just my opinion. So I'd like to see it to the extent that we're comfortable with, and who they would report to also, that reporting to the operations manager, and then that, of course, could change depending on, what we get into a little bit later on. But I'd like to go ahead and see that be done. What would be your opinion on that?
So her come back with a kind of a streamlined or finalized job description and amount.
Well, that would be putting it off for another 30 days. I think what I'm saying is that there's not a whole lot of change involved in that.
Right.
As long as we can agree that the salary
Right.
range is what we talked about. I'd like to go ahead and get it going.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
there's a lot of things that are moving here, and we do have it in the budget. I'd like to go ahead and get started on it.
And it's going to take us a while. We're going to advertise, we're going to post for 30 days. By the time we interview and yada, 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 we're probably looking at an early summer hire date.
So the motion would certainly contain the changes that we've suggested. So with that being the case, I move we accept the job, for approval of job description as well as the posting with suggested changes that we discussed relative to the reporting process, the salary range, and there was one other. And who to report to.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Just so I
Oh.
understand, 3 points. Approving the range, reporting to the ops manager, and the third was?
The job description to make sure that,
Oh, okay.
The appropriate salary range.
yeah.
Did you want, I know we talked briefly this morning about the job description being very long. What was the final decision? Leave it as is or massage it a little bit to make it look more like a standard job
I
description?
like the fact that you put all these things
You do
on
like
there
it?
because it's
Okay.
going to weed out a lot of folks. So,
Okay.
and that's a lot to have, but quite frankly, you want somebody that has the acumen that covers
Okay.
most all of that in a
Just needed
relatively
to
speaking.
And I have a problem with a motion that includes the word massage.
Excuse me.
I don't think that's real clear direction to know exactly.
Yes.
how
I
to
withdraw
I
that verbiage. I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't need to do some research and make it,
But I
you
did
know.
make the motion.
Okay.
All right, so the motion carries then. Thank you very much. All right, well, since we are at the end of it, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Before you make that motion, verifying we understood that the joint meeting was March 26th at 4:30 PM.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now I'll accept a motion.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Wait, real quick.
All right.
Wait,
Oh,
wait,
sorry.
wait. Because we're very proud of this. If you're not doing anything, I think at 9 a.m. Wednesday morning, go to C-SPAN and watch oral arguments on a case that we have before the United States Supreme Court, Gonzalez versus Trevino. It's a case about qualified immunity. Very, very interesting case.
Nice.
This is the second case we've had in front of the United States Supreme
I'm Trevino in that case.
Court. You're younger than her.
Just kidding.
Chair Spencer, who seconded
We
the?
hired a
Cheryl.
Sure.